Hi everyone. I have with me Sreeraag Gorthy, Head of AI of Dailyhunt, one of the very successful companies, right? So let's ask him some questions related to AI and let's get his opinion from him. Hi Sreeraag, welcome to the show.
Hi Sridhar, how are you doing?
I'm doing
Very,
great.
very glad to be on the show. And I'm really hopeful that whatever insights I'll be able to provide will be helpful for whoever is watching this.
Sure, thank you. So there's a lot of hype around generative AI right now for development. So I'm going to ask you some questions around that. So what are the skills beside coding that junior engineers should be focusing on if they want to get into AI?
Yeah, interesting question, right? So I think when GPT came along, people just said, "Hey, it's English, right? You have to be good at writing English." And anyways, that's a very simple skill that we were taught right from our childhood, right? But again, prompt engineering as such has become such a big thing, right? So in general, how do you? So I think while a lot of these LLMs, etc., are very good. It is very important to know how to kind of leverage these for your benefit and how to ask the right question. So there has never been a time to um, figure out how to ask the right question, right? So the world has now become such a place that if you ask the right question to the right LLM, your productivity will go up significantly, right? So from that point of view, it is important to understand what are the different tools that are available and what are the different ways in which you can leverage these tools to increase your productivity. I think we can go into detail as and when we go deeper. But I mean, basically, along with your coding skills, probably more than your coding skills now, it is important to understand, how can you be more productive and, how can you become the so-called 10x engineer with the help of AI, let's say.
Okay. So now people are talking about replacing five engineers, right? One engineer replacing five engineers, right? So do you believe that this is going to happen soon?
Yes and no, right? So I think so. If you ask me about whether something like that has happened in any large organization, not yet, right? And these models have been around for 2.5, 3 years now, right? So if that has not happened off late, again, the capabilities are increasing. The people are getting to know better about how can they leverage and all that. I think there are definitely, so it's definitely a paradigm shift. There is no doubt about it at all, right? So, like industrialization had kind of changed the way people work, right? So, this is again that level of a fundamental change, right? So, I think there will be a lot of roles that will be redundant. There is no doubt about it. Uh, in software engineering, outside of software engineering, everywhere, right? So I think there will be definitely roles that are redundant. But I think more important for anyone who's aspiring to be a good engineer in the age of AI is for them to know how to obviously, again you can get overwhelmed by all of this and say that doomsday is near. You can keep worrying about it. But then what I would like to look at it as is that, how can I become so even in the age of industrialization, what happened is that people who could understand how to leverage those machines can kind of came out shining, right? So they could skill themselves up and they could kind of find out ways to uh, you know become more productive, and that's what differentiated them from others, and that led the way forward, right? I think it's exactly the same, right? So you have to figure out how you how the machine cannot replace you, right? So again, the critical thinking, the again, even in a typical software engineer's life, coding is probably a very small percentage of his day to day, right? So there are a lot of other stuffs. There is a lot of value creation that happens in a typical engineer's life. So those need to continue basically.
Okay. So I think it's a very exciting phase, right? Where it's an exciting phase for the developers and also for people who want to create new products or some new startups, right? So let us talk about developers who are looking for a career in software development. For early stage SD1s and SD2s, Uh, what do you think if they want hands-on AI experience, but they don't get to work on AI projects right now? What is your advice for them?
Yeah, so I think again, I think one other big advantage of all of this AI hype is that there is no dearth of resources at all, right? So if you are motivated enough and if you can figure out ways to structure your learning, I think there are a lot of free courses available that you can obviously take. Otherwise, again, so there are good industry veterans. There are amazing colleges. Example is Triple IT Bangalore, and today I think pretty much every big university offers some kind of an AI course, right? So I think not a bad idea at all to enroll into one of these courses, because again they'll do the structured way of training you. And again, I think another big part of these kind of sessions is that you get a peer group, you get assignments, you try to get hands on. Again, I think if you are able to put in that hours, if you are able to put in that motivation to and show the desire to learn, I think there are hundreds of avenues today to kind of ramp yourself up in the space. And again, I think given the demand of AI engineers today, I think there is no dearth of so in fact, for example, we have ourselves hired a few folks who not necessarily have had the traditional AI experience, but then they could upskill themselves. They were relevant. They could clear our interview process, and then they are on board, right? So I think a lot of companies are not looking for the traditional setups where you have to have a degree in AI, or you have to have proven experience in AI. But again, if you are able to, again, what matters for a company, right? So ultimately what matters is that are you battle tested, and are you able to hit the ground running as soon as possible, and are you able to meaningfully contribute, and are you um, good with your fundamentals. Again, that is, there is no second thought about it, right? So you can't be superficial and expect that you will become relevant in a setup where people have already been working for some years, right? So if you put in the right hours into invest into learning, work on a lot of projects, I think that's again a super key thing, right? So uh, there is Kaggle. There are multiple open source data sets available. You can actually use ChatGPT to figure out what is a good project that you can pick up. You can probably, what I would probably do is pick up again. So there is no industry or area that AI would not solve a problem that existed, right? So pick up a data set of your choice, let's say, and then probably leverage one of these LLMs and say that, hey, suggest me some interesting academic projects that I can pick up, right? And then do end to end, right? From the data gathering, data cleaning, understanding the data, do a lot of EDA on it. That way you also get familiar with using these two lot of EDA tools. Again, in every step, right? You can close your eyes, blindly ask AI to solve your problem and be happy about it, or use AI in the right means and right ways, right? With respect to clearly understanding what is it that you have to invest versus clearly understanding where can you leverage AI to help you out in fast tracking your learning or whatever, right? So invest into that, and then if you're battle tested with respect to trying out on large scale data sets and in problems that are relevant, I think a lot of companies will be more than ready to hire. Very long answer to your question, but I think I was able to answer the question.
No, that's actually very important and relevant for these people who are waiting for a breakthrough. So talking about breakthrough, so what should be there on the resume? Is there any kind of a keywords that should be present in the resume or some kind of projects? What is it that you look forward for bringing a fresher to that interview first of all, for the AI interview without experience?
I think super interesting question, right? I think this is probably one area where I think people are misled the most. I don't know why, right? So often, very very often, I end up looking at resumes which are filled with keywords, right? So again, I think that's industry that probably spoiled a lot of these folks. right? So keyword search is was something that Google started, has been adopted very well in the industry, I guess, right? So people, in spite of them spending time or not, I don't know, but then just because they feel that adding some keyword will get them an avenue, I think people end up putting a lot of these hyped up keywords, right? So if you pick machine learning and AI, people put up NLP, recommendation systems, bunch of things, right? So it could they put up NLP, computer vision, diffusion, blah blah blah, everything, right? And when you start just going beyond the definition, they will not be able to answer, and that kind of turns me off very badly, right? Because I think what typically I look for, and I would assume that a lot of others also look for, is that not for keywords, definitely, right? So I think today, in this day and age, you add a keyword, and if the model is able to, if the LLM is able to give you a significant context about some knowledge as such, what is the value that you are able to add, right? Nothing, literally nothing, right? But then what really adds value is your battle testedness, like I was calling out, right? I would definitely look for people who have done interesting projects, right? Uh, and not that is off the shelf, right? So if, for example, I think a lot of people would say that they are AI ready by probably picking up uh, one of the most basic data sets that are available, and then saying that I did a regression, or I did something very basic. I took a data set which has 10,000 rows. The whole world uses that same data set. On that, I've trained regression, I've trained tree based models, I've trained neural networks, whatever, right? But then what is your differentiator, right? So everybody else would have done the same thing, right? So I think there, if you are able to find out some interesting problem that you can build a story around, right? Let's say you pick up. So again, how will you be able to differentiate, right? So one of this, again, this is one of the ways. There could be 100 other ways, right? So let's say you can kind of stitch a story which says that, hey, I faced a problem in my real life, right? And I tried to see what could be a solution to it, and then I picked up this problem statement. I picked up a toy data set which kind of resembles the problem statement, and then these were the different approaches in which I had tried, and then I came up with a solution, right? That is one good way, right? Or you can say that you pick up somewhat. So for example, I think for news recommendation, right? So Microsoft has a data set called mind, right? That is as real world as possible with respect to what you can have with respect to a data set, right? And then there are a lot of in recommendation system, this is a data set, right? And then you can take Netflix probably has some data sets, or you can take any field, and there are good quality data sets which are real world, right? Real world data sets are very different from what you do in academia, right? So if you can pick up large scale data sets, and if you kind of figure out a niche in that, and then do super end to end, right from the beginning to the end, and then are able to get a very good grip on the whole process, I think that kind of proves your battle testedness, right? With respect to doing the whole piece yourself, and then you being comfortable, and then out of the concepts that you've learned, if you can in the same story stitch together points saying, hey, these are the concepts that I've learned, and then these are the things that I could apply in this project, right? And that kind of gave me, and in the process you should also be able to explain the problems that you faced. Again, uh, we have done a lot of college projects together for that matter, right? There is no project, be it in college, be it in your office, anywhere else in your life, that everything runs seamlessly, right? And you should be also able to explain things that did not go well. What kind of crises did you run into, and how did you solve those problems? I think that kind of also gives a perspective of what are the different problems that you faced, and then how did you come out of it. Another example for how can I get an idea that this guy is battle tested, and this guy can contribute meaningfully to my team, right? Yeah.
Interesting. Now I see that there are two type of skills that people can focus on. Either you learn this core ML AI skills, like what you're saying, regression, etc., training the models, or using the LLMs and APIs and building applications and wrappers on top of that and building some applications. So what do you think is more valuable, or what is it that our developers should be focusing on at this moment?
I think both of them have their own issues, right? So, if you are actually interested in a lot of the core machine learning stuff, if you're interested in doing a lot of data related things and if you have a thing for data with respect to uh, probably figuring out a lot of nuances in data, probably figuring out uh, how do you build features, how do you engineer features, how do you kind of solve for problems that uh, by going beyond what let's say an LLM could churn out, right? So if you put any problem today and then LLM will give you the V0 or V1 of it, right? So how can you add value beyond it is where you will be able to differentiate yourself, right? So that's one way of figuring out as to pick a problem that is available, beyond what pick up the top 3 4 LLMs today, right? So pick up ChatGPT, pick up Perplexity, pick up Claude, Gemini, whatever it is, right? And then throw the problem there and then pick up all the solutions and see what value are you able to add on top of it, right? Similarly, coding problem, right? So uh, again, pick up any lead code problem, dump it in Claude, it will give you an answer, no doubt about it, right? What is your value add then, right? So that's why I think from very basic coding skills to solutions is what I would like to say that people will be able to add value, right? So pick up a real world problem. Let's say you have to solve a backend caching problem, or you have to solve a problem where you are facing a lot of memory issues in your app, ANRs in your app, something like that, right? So pick up something that's more closer to a real world and see what is the value that you're able to add as an engineer, more than what an LLM could do, right? That kind of gives you an idea of what is the direction that you can go into, right? And then once you have the clarity with respect to, hey, in general, I am again today, it's impossible to say that I'm just good at coding, I'll not use any of these LLMs. That in my opinion is foolish, probably, right? Because again, you are closing your eyes to a lot of productivity gains that are at play, right? And at the same time, you cannot say that I am very good at AI, I will not care about being a good coder. That's also not a very wise thing to say, right? So from that standpoint, I think both of these are important. What is important again now is that you figure out what is your niche and what is your interest, and then go deeper into it, right? And then if you in both of these, I think what is non-negotiable is that how do you figure out how to use these tools available to your benefit, right? So for example, let's say things like how do I use code generating tools in my IDs to start with, right? Or how do I leverage different tools that LLMs offer. LLMs today offer search, RAG based searches, they offer deep research, they offer thinking solutions, they have a gamut of tools that they have exposed. And I mean, the best part is all of these are there are fail limits, but most of them are free, right? So it's important to know what these LLMs offer, and it's also important to know which of these tools do I use for which of the problems to increase my productivity.
Okay. So do you suggest that they should have a deeper idea about these LLMs and their models and what are they specialized at? Is that helpful for them?
So if you mean deeper idea means that you have to understand how the internals of LLMs work, or if you have to understand let's say how do you deploy a model on distributed GPU cluster, or how do you do distributed training, maybe may not be, right? I think if you are going into the domain and if you are probably applying for one of these companies that are building LLMs, yes, right. But as a fresher, if you are trying to see how you can leverage these and how can you be more productive from that standpoint, maybe no, right. But what you should definitely know is that what are the tools available, and how should I figure out what tool to use, like I was calling out, right? So I think that is definitely, that's a survival skill, right? And the rest is up to you. You can definitely learn. I think all of these are good engineering problems for that matter, right? So how do you kind of so for example, DeepSeek, which kind of China open sourced, so they had to kind of scale up from pretty much zero to millions of requests very quickly, right? And in fact, when the whole ChatGPT movement started, I think I was watching one of the videos where one of the VP of engineering of OpenAI was saying that he had shared a Slack screenshot of one of the developers before taking the ChatGPT application live. They expected it to be a research preview, and they expected researchers to use it. They never expected it to kind of blow apart the world like it did, right? But then they had scaled up. I mean, a few days GPT didn't work, but if you remember, in I think it was 2022 November or whenever it had released, right? It didn't work initially, but then they kind of scaled up amazingly well very quickly, right? So they're all interesting problems, but then you have to pick your forte and you have to really give your heart out in understanding the in depth of it. But then your survival skill, I think, is to make sure that you know how to use these tools well.
Okay, thank you. So AI coding assistants are becoming super useful, right? So, and at the same time, we see that the junior developers, they are skipping the basics, and they're just being over reliant on these AI tools like ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot, etc. So what is your advice for them? How should they strike this balance?
Yeah, I think that's a reality that we live in, right? So I think so for example, even sometimes on things, so for example, I am not good at any of the stuff on the UI side, right? So if I'm building any tools for our internal use cases, etc., I don't even know the syntaxes, the libraries that are available. I just go by whatever it gives, right? I think it's very easy to get lost in that loop, right? But I think this is what I tell my folks in the team as well, right? If it's your forte, right? So, for example, if you please go ahead and generate code, right? No one is stopping you against doing it. But then, let's say an AI engineer is trying to build a classification model, let's say, right? And he's trying to figure out, what are the different loss functions that he can use, or what are the different, regularization methods that he can use, or whatever, right? There, if he is blindly relying on GPT or any of the models and not understanding what is at play, that's a blunder, right? Similarly, for a software developer, right? So you are an Android developer, let's say, and then it has given you some very fundamental Android related Kotlin code that you just copy pasted, right? You are inviting yourself trouble, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think LLMs are at a place where they can debug code for you, right? So you can get stuck in that loop, a debug loop of, running something, getting the error, copy pasting it into the LLM again, and then doing that 100 times and then getting stuck in that loop, right? But then what is important is that, there is a very fine line between uh, a person who knows what tools are available and how to use them to increase their productivity versus becoming a victim of the tools, right? I think second one is obviously not something that anyone wants to get into, right? So I think for that, what is important is that so what probably let's say I pick up the first problem that I was talking about, right? Which is let's say I'm running a classification model, I generated code for it, right? uh, I because I am an AI engineer. I'm supposed to know what are the different classification models available, etc. And I am the person who's taking the call on which model to use, and what are the different parameters, hyperparameters that I can tune, etc. Right? I can probably, it's okay for me to forget a particular loss function or regularization function or any of the other hyperparameters that are available, and then I take the help and then go ahead, right? But it's not okay for me to not know a particular loss function, not know a particular hyperparameter, and then just blindly going by it, because it'll come back and bite me someday, right? So even if it generates, I think that's another good way of learning as well, right? So if it has generated something that you don't know, I mean, please spend time on it and try to understand what is at play, right? So probably, again, I am a big proponent in general of learning on the job, right? So if you probably ask me to watch a 5-hour video for learning something versus probably spend the same time just figuring out, failing, and then repeating, I'll probably pick up the second path, right? So from that standpoint, it's good, right? So because there is serendipity at play. You are getting to know something that you did not know, and in the process of working on a problem, right? So from that point of view, it's good, right? So that keep your eyes open, right? That's probably one of the simplest cues here, right? So keep your eyes open. Make sure that you are in command of whatever is getting generated. And then again, there are different ways of making sure that you are not getting blindfolded by what's generated, right? So I think one way is that let LLM itself generate test cases for it. And then uh, as one of the senior folks in the team, what is my job today? It's less about actually implementing the ground stuff, but a lot about reviewing what the team members have done, or reviewing the designs or whatever, right? So become that person as soon as possible, right? So that's so assume that GPT is your super junior assistant who will make mistakes, let's say 5 out of 10 times, but then that's a necessary evil, because you can't do all of that work. So look at it that way, and then make sure that you are reviewing it very thoroughly, because assume that 5 out of 10 times it is wrong, right? That's being skeptical and keeping your eyes open, and then building frameworks around testing, etc., are ways that you can, and again, figuring out what is your forte. So if I was probably using some skill that is not my forte, I probably don't, again, there is no learning scope for me as well, right? So it's okay for me to not going into the depth, but then going ahead with what the models have given. But if it is in my forte, then I will definitely spend that extra time to invest and learn about whatever is getting generated.
Okay. So I'd like to ask you some more questions. Okay, so let me ask you this question. With AI automating more coding tasks, right? How should developers think about their career growth and stay relevant and not become a victim of AI?
Yeah, so I think in a way it was kind of answered in the previous question, right? So I think not becoming a victim of AI is in your hands, right? And it's entirely in your hands. So I think, and one thing for the coding ecosystem, the engineer ecosystem, is that all of us are in this together, right? So I think if AI is going to replace ABCD, again, there is some order to it, obviously, but then it's a collective problem that we'll have to handle and come over, right? So from that standpoint, I think only thing that is in our hands is that we invest into using the tools, and invest into knowing the right way of using the tools. That's definitely no second thoughts about it. I can so for example, pick up any revolution that happened. You can become a naysayer and then say that I'm this is scary, this will change humanity, and this will destroy humanity, and not even embrace it. But now when two world leaders meet, the topic is AI, right? So this is as real as it can get, right? So this reality is staring at us very, very starkly, right? So from that standpoint, I think what is important is to make sure that you stay relevant, and you always have your eyes open, and keep keep learning. I think no better time to stay updated on things, right? So I think probably last 1 week or two, uh, XAI released their new Grok 3 models. OpenAI released GPT 4.5. Microsoft released their 5.4 models. Uh, Anthropic released Claude 3.7. Google announced that their a code completion tool is practically free for almost all use cases. I think we are living in a day and age where if a company is not announcing anything for a week's time, not even a month, not even a quarter, not even a year, a week's time, they are getting a FOMO of being left out, right? So that is the generation that we are in. So exciting times. I think I find it fascinating that there is so much happening around it. Uh, I have always been a tech geek with respect to staying on top of technology, staying on top of announcements. So I think that will definitely help. Stay on top of things, get to know about what are the different problems that these models are able to solve. AI agents are, the thing right now, right? So there are different companies that are building different AI agents to automate end-to-end flows. Again, that's another interesting field that I keep tracking. So from that point of view, stay relevant with respect to staying on top of things. Invest into your personal learning. Make use of the tools in the best way possible. Make sure that you're tracking that your productivity is going up. I think, yeah, these are few things that I can think of.
Okay, what is your practical tip? Practical tips or practical advice for people who are, looking forward for, embracing themselves with these AI developments. You see, want to be staying updated with the AI developments, or I would like to rephrase this question. Maybe something like, if you were to be the recruiter, okay, what are the skills that you will look at, and what is the advice that you would like to give for potential candidates?
Yeah, I think very good question, right? And I mean, I definitely wanted to talk about it at some point in time. So I think how does someone stay on top of things, right? So I think one thing that's obvious is that you can use social media to get yourself entertained about what is the latest social media dance trend or whatever it is, or you can use social media to kind of follow interesting accounts where they keep talking about the latest advancements or latest announcements by top tech companies or startups or whatever, right? So I think that's one way that I had figured out that these are a good way of knowing about things, right? So bunch of social media accounts that pick a field that you're interested in, and then follow interesting people who keep posting about these stuff, right? Second is, I think there are a lot of these uh, channels on Discord or WhatsApp or Telegram where people keep discussing about different problems that they're solving using generative AI or AI or tools or whatever, right? So I think one way to figure out is get into one of these groups and generally try to stay on top, right? Substack or Reddit are two other good sources that I have. So I've subscribed to a few interesting newsletters on Substack and Reddit, on Substack basically, which kind of keep me updated. LinkedIn again, there are a bunch of accounts that keep posting about a lot of these things on LinkedIn. I which is where I try to get my stuff from. Yeah, so I think that's answer to first part of your question. To second part on what do I look for, it is again the same thing, right? So even when I was hiring people 8 years 9 years back, I would look for how inquisitive they are with respect to trying to learn things and trying to differentiate themselves with the mass, right? I think that is more relevant now than before, is what I'd feel, right? So I think what is it that you're trying to learn, what is it that you're trying to upskill yourself on, and how are you differentiating yourself, and how are you able to differentiate and go into depth of things and solve a problem well. I think if you are able to make that mark both in your resume and in the interview process, I think I don't see any reason why someone would not be willing to have you on board, right? So ultimately, what helps a team typically is that, again, coding after a point, you coding versus XYZ, another person coding, I think there's not a lot of difference, right? But what is your differentiator is, the commitment that you put in, the ownership that you possess as a team member, the willingness for of you to pick up new challenges and scale up. I think these are the differentiators that will take you ahead in your profile, right? So from that standpoint, what is important is these things, and if you're able to demonstrate these kind of skill sets in the interview, I think that's about it. Everybody will love to hire you.
Okay, awesome. So we had a very interesting discussion. Thanks for that, Sreeraag. So we have had a lot of discussion, and I would say the summary, the key takeaways for me, like I would tell somebody, if I were to tell you, if I have to summarize what you said, is that get your hands dirty, be battle tested, go deep into something, and have a story to present, and have a specialization. Right? Don't be generic. Don't be one of many. Have something very unique and go deep and be battle tested and present it properly in the interview. And you don't need a lot of experience really. If you can properly present things, you will be picked up, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
very well summarized.
perfect. Okay, so very wonderful. So thank you very much for joining this show, Sreeraag.
Thanks, Sridhar. Had a lot of fun.
Thank you. Bye.